everybody, and welcome to the Barcoding Huddle. I'm your host, Jody Costa, the Vice President of Marketing for Barcoding Incorporated. Barcoding is a supply chain automation and innovation company dedicated to helping organizations like yours be more efficient, accurate, and connected. Today, I am very excited to bring some expertise at the very tippy top of the industry to you today to discuss how to cultivate FSMA 204 readiness. And we have our premier partner, Zebra Technologies, waiting in the wings to join me today. Zebra empowers organizations to thrive in the on-demand economy by making every frontline worker and asset at the edge visible, connected, and fully optimized. They have an ecosystem of partners across more than 100 countries, of course, barcoding being one of the very best. And they serve customers of all sizes, including 86% of the Fortune 500. They have an award-winning portfolio of hardware, software, services, and solutions that digitize and automate workflows. Supply chains are more dynamic, customers and patients are better served, and workers are more engaged when they utilize Zebra innovations that help them sense, analyze, and act in real time. And of course, partners like Barcoding who bring it all to life. So with that, thank you, Zebra Technologies, for being here, and let's get this huddle going. So my panelists, please join me, and great to see your faces, and welcome to the huddle. I always like to start with some introductions, so you heard who I am, but I'm not the most important person here. So I'd like to start with John, because he is our special guest. John, would you please unmute and tell us a little bit, a bit about yourself?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay? I was having some problems there for a second. All right.
All good.
Hey, Jody, thank you. We love our partnership with Barcoding, and I love these discussions. You know, JW and I have done these a couple of times, and they're always a lot of fun and really informative. So my role here is a subject matter expert. My title is Industry Principal for Manufacturing, Transportation, and Logistics here at Zebra for North America. And it's a fun job. I get to leverage my experience in logistics. You know, early in my career, my understanding of IT and the infrastructure and application development, and then, you know, my knowledge of not only Zebra solutions, but our partner solutions, and just solutions in the industry to bring those light, connect the dots for our customers. And, you know, when we're talking about a subject like FSMA 204 regulations, are where, you know, sometimes our customers struggle and how to implement those given their current, you know, workflows. And it's nice to be able to talk with them and help them support, you know, their movement from where they are in their, you know, kind of as is methodology and where they need to be tomorrow. So excited to be here.
Love it. And where are you broadcasting from today, John?
So I live in Michigan, so I'm about an hour west of Michigan, in a small town and out in the country. So
Awesome.
Love it. No snow yet on the ground, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you so much. And we are very, very happy to have you here and can't wait to hear your insights. JW, can you please tell everyone who you are?
Yeah, thanks, Jody and John. Good to have you with us as always. Always enjoy talking to you. So, you know, if you really looked at what my official title is, you know, it says that I'm the Barcoding IoT Automation Solutions Director. But if you really wanted to put what I see my title as, it's Supply Chain Geek and Industry Mutt. Because I've been in this space now for close to 20 years, I think. And I say industry mutt because I've been, you know, fortunate to work for companies like Zebra Technologies and companies before they were ever Zebra, like Motorola Solutions, and all the way back to the Symbol Matrix days. And then even had some time with other organizations and such as SmartTrack, Readiness. And so been around the block for quite a while, and loved those times, those organizations that have brought me to Barcoding today. And no more said. Let's get really into the fun stuff, Jody.
Let's get into the fun stuff. So, real quick, where are you broadcasting from today?
Virtually, I'm in the office as you, but I'm actually in Pittsburgh.
Excellent. And if you see people moving, it's because I'm live from our headquarters in Baltimore. So that's the group, this is the gang, and we're going to talk FSMA 204. So let's get right into it. I think that most people, if they are watching this, they obviously have an interest in learning about how to prepare for FSMA 204, but probably best to level set. Let's get everybody on the same page. So John, maybe you kick this off. Tell us what is this regulation and why does it matter now?
Well, at the end of the day, this regulation is from the FDA, and it's about keeping consumers safe. And I think everybody can relate to that. I mean, everybody eats, right? So, we want to protect ourselves, we want to protect our families, and we want to make sure that the food we're ingesting from supermarkets and restaurants, all is good stuff to eat, and we're not going to get sick from it. So this regulation is all about tracing products all the way from when they're grown or harvested, all the way through the supply chain to where you're going to actually consume them. Again, whether it's a grocery store or restaurant. And we've all heard the horror stories about lettuce recalls and and bad tomatoes and things like that. And it's very difficult for the industry, the food industry is very vast to be able to track. All right, do I have that lettuce? Do I have that meat that was recalled? And you see those across the headlines. And I'm sure as consumers, we're all looking at these headlines going, how do they know that they're not going to serve that to me when I go into the store, or into a restaurant the next time? And this really helps us to understand that. And we can use then technology if we're tracking the lot numbers and codes that you see on the screens, on your newscast. If we're able to track that through the supply chain, then we're able to give tools and technology to those folks across the supply chain to quickly identify and pull those items and to make sure that you're getting the right stuff and it's safe. So I'm actually very, very excited about this. I tend to eat, so it's something that's near and dear to my heart. So excited to help our customers and partner with barcoding, make sure that we can help them evolve from where they are now to what their workflows need to be as we go forward in the future.
Awesome. And as I understand, so FSMA, Food Safety Modernization Act, passed in 2011, but Section 204 is that final rule to kind of get that record keeping in place. JW, you look like you were about to jump in there. So do you want to kind of expand upon that piece a little bit?
Actually, yes, I'd love to, and I'll come back to the question I had for John as well in a minute. But yeah, I mean, if you look at FSMA and Section 204, it's really kind of broken down into 4 pillars, right? And I won't go into the details of what all those 4 pillars are today for the sake of time, but specifically, what Zebra and barcoding are really working with our customers is that one pillar specific around tech-enabled traceability, and we'll talk about that more here in a little bit. And it's a pretty loose term in terms of what technologies you use. We'll talk about some that work better than others, but none of which are certainly required. But the question I wanted to come back to John on, not to put you on a spot, John, and go into the gory details, but typically
this is the time. This is the time to put people on the spot.
Let's do gory. We're all about gory.
But when I've been on some similar podcasts with some of our friends like Mike Grain, he always tries to turn the conversation around to how it was more personable. And you brought up earlier well-being, concerns, safety, well-being for family members and such. I know I've personally had a bad experience with contaminated food, and that me as a consumer, that totally steered me away from wanting to go buy something from that retailer again. Have you experienced anything that from a consumer lens that has made you think about food traceability in a more personal way?
Well, yeah, I definitely think so. Whether you eat at sit-down restaurants or everybody's goes through the drive-throughs at those quick service restaurants. I think we get in habits. I was on a webinar we did for a while ago, and I was talking about in the morning, just get out of the house. Since we're working at home, I'll have my little dog and we'll go through McDonald's and I'll get my little breakfast sandwich and he says hi to everybody. And you get into those routines, and whether it's that or it's Starbucks routine or whatever. But what happens is these restaurants are extremely competitive, and as one quick service restaurant, the competitor is always across the street or down the block. So they're really fighting for what's the market differentiator. And to your point, John, if you have a bad experience, whether you get sick from something or even think that you might have got sick from a particular vendor, you're going to hesitate to break that cycle and start going somewhere else. And so regulation compliance is something that we're going to talk about a little bit here, but it's really it's a market differentiator. And I think the industry's been looking at ways to they're always looking at ways to to become different in amongst their competitors. But The technology we're talking about is not only going to help with that, but I think it also helps with just addressing some of the labor issues that we're seeing out there. So a lot of interesting things to talk about. Jody, we were talking about before we got on how long this was going to be, and you're going to have to probably referee and throw in the towel after so long, because I think we can drone on this for forever. There's just a lot of aspects to it.
Well, what I love is that, once again, we wear multiple hats, right? We are the consumer and we now are acting kind of in with our supply chain geek hat on, we're acting in a space where we can help. So I love that, where, you can kind of personally feel this, as well as, kind of bringing our professional opinions to the table and helping out. And I think that's probably one of the strongest reasons why, we get passionate conversations, right? Because we all understand the importance of food safety and food, not wasting food, which is just a huge issue kind of across the globe. So
Right.
I think let's just dive in. Let's put our professional hats back on and kind of think about this final piece of FSMA. So why should, the people watching this recording, why should they care that barcoding and Zebra are kind of focusing in on this space? Like, what makes us kind of unique, and why do we think we can help? JW, maybe I'll start with you on this one. I know you're personally passionate here.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jody. And yeah, I think it's looking at the collective value that we can bring to the given end user with a partner like Zebra. And we talk about tech-enabled traceability, as I mentioned a little earlier, as it relates to one of the 4 pillars within FSMA. But that in itself opens up the door to help our customers do a whole lot more. And certainly that whole lot more ties to their customer or whoever that consumer might be, but also to their internal benefits. And as John regularly speaks to with the labor shortages and such. So ultimately, I think that when you look at everything that barcoding can bring to the table with its partner ecosystem like Zebra, we are really providing a lot of different benefits to meet those compliance type mandates, or provide additional benefits so I always like to see these types of conversations be as a stepping stone to help someone do a lot more.
I'm assuming you agree too, John.
Yeah, I do. And I think with this regulation, I think where we can help is that, this goes from the farm, all the way to fork, right? I love that saying. It just seems to roll off the tongue. And one of the things that I think about is, avocados to making guacamole. I mean, that's really what this is all about is, I have to track that avocado as it comes out of the ground, essentially at the grower, all the way through the supply chain. So that either gets, bought, you buy avocados at your grocery store, or you're ingesting, guacamole at your restaurant, or even, guacamole that's been prepared, by an entity from a business to business, if you're going to a school. Those are things that we're seeing in, I know, the general public, I don't have a lot of experience with avocado farmers, but I would imagine that they're not really high tech. They're probably looking at this regulation thinking, how am I going to collect all this information on the clipboard out in the middle of the field? And I think that's where, Zebra and barcoding can really, partner well together. What we do is, I connect the dots. I want to be able to go visit these environments, look at those workflows, and then together we can put our heads together and figure out, all right, here's what you're doing now. Here's what you're going to have to do. What's the tools and technologies that make sense that's going to provide you the value proposition, those desired business outcomes that you need? And to me, when I go in those visits, I probably learn as much as I teach. And I think that's kind of the fun of this role that I'm in. So I'm looking forward to, having those visits and partnering with JW and your team to really understand, the more sites we see along the supply chain, the better information we're going to be, and the better we'll be as those trusted advisors that our customers are going to need.
And Jody, just to add one other thing to what John said too, and I know I'm assuming we're probably the conversation's naturally going to go there later, which is, how do we collectively help motivate, inspire our customers to want to invest into technology?
Hey, go there right now.
But
I like it.
Since John brought up the avocado farmer, I mean, certainly one representative of many more, and that's how do we help them make that the best how do they make that more for themselves? And, certainly, well, again, not to sound like a broken record, whether it's operational improvements or maybe brand integrity, if I'm contributing to if I'm producing food products that are part of a broader recall, how do I, clear my name sooner than later so I can go back to producing and farming and making revenue for myself versus sitting on the sidelines. So I think that's where, we have to provide those types of understandings to our customers to want to be motivated in this space as well.
So it's not just, I mean, it's the government is actually saying like, hey, we need to all step up and collectively look at food safety. But what I'm hearing too is we should have that modernization mindset right now, regardless, because of all the benefits that kind of come along with it, right, John? I think this is something that you've been preaching.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a start now. I mean, every time customers look at, and I don't say every time, but in the most general sense of the words, and what I'm going to say is, we see government put a regulation out, and you have to comply in the next 2 or 3 years, whatever it is. And companies tend to say, I'm going to sit back and kind of wait until I really need to do something. They're probably going to extend it. I'm not going to really worry about it now. Wrong answer, folks. Number one, I'll kind of reference in a like traceability regulation on the pharmaceutical side. There's a similar regulation that started almost 10 years ago, and it's going to go into effect this November. And I just came from a conference, and where they're required to exchange this information. And despite the efforts that have been going on the last 10 years, they have about 13% of those vendors are ready and actually sending information and data that's clean, where they would be able to actually be compliant. And they're not expecting between now and November for that to get much better. And so, very concerned about getting, needed medications throughout the supply chain in order to comply. But also, really, at the end of the day, both these regulations are about providing safe products to our families, and that's really what you have to keep first and foremost. So I think if we keep that in mind, that this is about doing the best for the public, and we kind of work backwards, then we can add sort of things like, you need to act now because you have labor shortages now. Let's help you get technology to help you become more efficient now. And let's just set you up so that compliance is just a byproduct of, those efforts that you need to do anyway.
I love that. I feel like JW have extra comments on that one.
No, I was waiting just to add to me reinforce what John was saying is, that everyone thinks that they have all the time in the world, and then and when you
Wait,
see
we don't.
then you see the focus on what's right in front of you, but you really, in this case, have to look further ahead to realize, what's it going to what's it going to take to invest into a plan that's going to, make this outcome a successful one, because it's, if you look at any one given organization, now certainly the size of the organization is going to dictate the size of that cross-functional team. There's multiple roles and responsibilities, people that need to be involved, and it's not just within your own organization, it's with your trading partners upstream and downstream. And then just this past November, when FSMA was finally put into its final state, immediately after, they gave us another year to comply. So taking 2 years now to 3 years, kind of what John was referring to. So it's not something to worry about next year or the year after. It's something you really have to start putting an action behind now, to then test and validate that plan is ready to go, and it's time to flip that switch.
Yeah, because
go ahead, John.
I'm sorry, Jody. Yeah, just to reiterate, and not to beat this, dead horse, but it needs to be beat. I think if pharma had an industry that they could look at and see what the future looked like, I think they would have done things different. The food industry has that opportunity right now. What you're seeing in pharma is that crystal ball of, what you should be doing and why you should be doing it now. They're finding that, these companies in the food supply chain, they're going to have different levels of capability, maturity that they're at now. So some are going to have very heavy lifts, some are going to have moderate lifts, but there is going to be a change. There's going to be changes to systems. There's going to be changes to workflows. And those are things that, you can't think, I'll start it a year before. It's not just about you. This is a supply chain centric perspective that you have to look at. You can't just look at your own four walls. You have to look upstream in the supply chain and downstream to your customers, and you have to link that together. that's the challenge, and that's what this is all about. Is it's a holistic traceability exercise, if you will.
And then
Yeah,
Joe,
and that's the definition of our world, right? We're more connected than ever. We have to collaborate more than ever, right? And change is a constant, right?
Mhm.
It is inevitable, and it is moving faster than ever. So let's start to pivot about kind of, I want, you guys have both mentioned that this is a full supply chain impact. Let's talk about some of the organizations that are actually going to be impacted by FSMA 204. So I think we mentioned quick serve, or I think what I used to call fast food restaurants, grocers, other types of suppliers. Help me kind of understand this ecosystem of who's involved.
and maybe I can just start, and then John, if you want to take it deeper to any one area. But yeah, I mean, if you look at John, I mean, John called it out earlier, right? I mean, there's so many different ways to phrase up food traceability: farm to fork, boat to throat, harvest to home, etc. I mean, the list goes on and on. But it consists, it usually consists of, as you mentioned, various trading partners, and it can be everything from the producer or the processor, the warehouse distributor, as well as the retailer, which, as Jody mentioned, it could be, QSR or grocer or whatever. So they all have collectively have to be involved in this to make this successful. And the interesting thing about that is the information that's relevant to each of them. So when you get into talking about what does one organization need to do to comply, there's a lot of uniqueness to each customer in terms of GS1 defined critical tracking events, GS1 defined key data elements. I know we'll probably touch on that here in a little bit, but there's a lot to be had there. So that's why I want to call it that. When we talk about this this ecosystem, it is very complex, right? I mean, there are all sorts of different trading partner types. So and John, I saw you nodding your head, so I don't want to derail your thought. Do you have another comment? Sorry.
No, I think, at this conference, there was an analogy used, we always use the Titanic analogy, right? You see the iceberg, you're slowly going towards it. What if they saw that and they turned? Well, this is the same thing. The iceberg's dead ahead. These organizations, it takes a lot to turn the iceberg, or can't turn the iceberg, to turn the ship. But I think what we need to realize is it's not your ship. All of your trading partners are on the same ship, guys, and that's what it's a collective. It's a very complex point-to-point discussions, and unlike Europe and similar, there is no common interface engine that's going to allow you to send your information. Somebody's going to do magic with it and send it to your trading partners. You have to set up discrete interfaces to trade this information with all your trading partners, and so does everybody else. So in order to make that whole thing work, you have to start now. It's not just the technology to work, but you're going to find that just even your master data management and your master data records, those are going to have to be cleaned up. They're going to have to be, tuned to the GS1 specifications, and that data is going to have to be cleaned in order for those interfaces to work. And that takes time. The first time that you send a transaction, it's going to fail, guaranteed. There's going to be things that you're going to have to find, and that's a 6 months to a year exercise to get that correct. And that's not even talking about the technology that you use that we specialize in. How do we capture that edge data cleanly so that transaction is clean, right? We can help you with that piece, but your backend master data management records also have to be clean as well. So it's a very interesting exercise. I think to this community, we've been through a lot of that, and we have good experience, between Zebra and barcoding. And so we have some knowledge we can bring to the table. Just please be open with us and let us understand your businesses. And again, don't just look at Zebra and barcoding as just selling you that new pretty scanner and printer, which we will do and we love doing, but we're different. We're actually really trying to understand the industry disruptors and be that trading or that trusted advisor and partner with you.
And Jody, John brought up two things I just want to touch on, and I think it's worth noting is that, while we're talking food and we're food specific today, there are adjacent markets, that lessons learned have come from, like John was alluding to earlier with pharmaceuticals. Certainly the same applies to general retail merchandise, apparel. Taking those lessons learned and applying them in some essence to food traceability. And then he opened up the behemoth door, which is around GS1 and how that's mission critical to enable interoperability and data sharing. And in the world of GS1, that's how we look at how we identify items and capture the information and then share that information. And there's a slew of different standards that one needs to be familiar with. And I think that's where also it comes back to why you have to be careful with whatever partner you select. Hopefully it's us, but if it's not, certainly making sure that those people, those solution providers have that supply chain expertise, that technology expertise, that standards expertise, and how that all kind of comes together.
I love that. And I it always stands out to me that, in my marketing brain, I distill it down, right? Traceability is data. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of different pieces and parts and things that need to happen and need to be put in place to make that happen, that sharing of data. But that's really what we're talking about, right? How do we share information in this more complex world? And then how do we make sure that when we do share this data, it's actionable, it's clean. and I think all of us who work in the corporate environments know that keeping data clean is always a challenge. So JW, I think something that you mentioned there, and I love that, because the barcoding perspective, we work with so many different types of organizations. So we're bringing in, best practices that we're seeing across the board. But let's just, for sake of argument, say someone watching this video says, "You guys sold me. I love this. I want to work with you all." What's your best advice for preparing? So let's say we've heard you loud and clear. We want to start, and we want to start now. What's our next step? So John, maybe I'll start with you, and then we'll kick it over to Jada.
So I think there's preparation. The end goal is we want to be on site. We want to be able to see your workflows. But in order for that to be a fruitful conversation, we need to have a virtual meeting and have the right people, the right personas in the room. We need the people that have been given this responsibility for complying with these regulations, have responsibility for moving the product. And like I say, they're the ones that wake up screaming in the middle of the night because how am I going to do this? Those are the people that we need to have that conversation with. And those are the people that need to be with us as we're going through those workflows, along with some site manager type of people, and to really understand that, that workflow, and to have that exchange of ideas of, all right, what are some of the technologies that make sense? Here's where you're at now, here's where you need to go. And let's put that roadmap together so that, the technologies that make sense to you, we can help you kind of build that along as we go. And once you have a plan, you'll start sleeping a little bit better through the night. But right now, there's a lot of customers out there that I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety, and we're finding personas that we've never dealt with before. A lot of regulatory, affairs. People are responsible for this, and they're getting more involved in conversations that we just generally in this space don't talk to, to lawyers, but they're be giving that responsibility, and kind of like I saw in the other industry. We're starting to see that, DSCSA compliance or compliance people, those titles are starting to pop up. And I would imagine that's the same thing's going to happen in this industry as well. These companies are going to see that this is a problem that they need to, and it's not a 1-year problem. It's a 10-year plus into the future sort of initiative. And you're going to start seeing those personas starting to, those new titles starting to emerge. And those are the people that we need to engage with.
And John, I swear that you like to steal my thunder at times, because there's certain points that you bring up that it just shows we're thinking the same thing just naturally. And when I made my introduction in the very beginning and I said I'm a mutt and a supply chain geek, one of the reasons I bring that up is sometimes just for fun, I'll go on LinkedIn and look at organizations that in this space and look at like who they're hiring. Look at the types of roles they're bringing on to support these types of initiatives. So whether it's a traceability expert or a quality assurance person or whatever that role might be, but if they don't have those roles today, then how can you effectively put together a traceability plan as well? So we touched on that in the very beginning. It's just, but my point coming back to it is you need to make sure you have those internal investments made to have the, visibility within your organization to make those, to put together that plan to take action on. So you were just talking about roles, and it made me think about, I literally look at who's hiring what sometimes just for curiosity's sake.
Sure.
And then the other thing I want to add to it as well is, I know we've touched on it now once or twice, but I don't think people will have given enough thought at times to just the sheer impact that bringing GS1 into the conversation can help. I mean, having, whether you're using GS1 resources for your own training purposes, they have fantastic certification programs, which I'm happy to say barcoding is very actively participating in for our own expertise. But when we talk about GS1 standards, it's not just about the GTN. It's not just about getting visibility to those global trade items, but in food traceability, we also need to be considerate of the locations, what's referred to as GLNs. We have to be considerate of all these other factors that go into sharing data. So people need to certainly have that in-house understanding. If not, work with someone that does.
Yeah, I'm hearing, building that business case and making those internal investments and leveraging, kind of the resources that are available out there. I definitely think about barcoding's approach of PPT, process, people, then technology. And I think that's kind of been clear in both of your guys' sentiments around that. So I am, getting prepared. I'm making the right internal investments. I'm building that business case. I believe I'm getting, my research done. I'm leveraging, organizations like GS1. I think it's the right time to maybe have that site visit. I think that's probably another area where there's some preparation, right, John?
Yeah, there sure is. Like I alluded to before, I think there's a kind of a pre-call of getting the right people in the room, talking through the workflows, and make sure that, we want to make sure that you have, you understand that this is important. We understand that this is important, so we want to have the right people there at the beginning, so there's some continuity. And then what we want to do is we really just want to come in, meet with you for a few minutes, understand your objectives, kind of get a lay of land of if we're in a packing site or if we're in a distribution center, just understand, who are your customers upstream, who are your customers downstream, why are you there, why is this building there, why is this company there, let's just help us level set and understand that. And then as we understand that and we understand where you think you need to go in the next 2 to 3 years, right, and those pain points, then as we walk through the flow of that facility, then JW's job is to stop me from just blurting out everything that I see, because I start seeing lots of ideas. I kind of see data going around, and there's just a lot of things that can be done. But if we merge those ideas that JW and I can brainstorm on, we connect that with what's the low-hanging fruit. What I tend to do is look at the processes, identify things, and then when we come back and revisit what we learned, it's all right, what should you start now? What's the near-term goals that you should establish? What are midterm and what are long-term things, and how do you kind of set yourself up for that? And those sort of things are a readout to the right level of executives in your organization. And that readout shouldn't be more than 10-12 pages. It's a very high level, here's what we observed, and then it's a good lead into how do we get into the weeds a little bit further.
I love that. And to get into the weeds a little bit further, based on kind of what you're seeing, maybe JW, just give us that's at the highest of levels, the types of technologies that kind of come into play. Maybe that's at the low-hanging fruit side, but also maybe at the longer term planning side. Just start to give us a window into that world.
Yeah, and I think you have to be open to that window, as you refer to, because as we said in the very beginning of this conversation, when we start talking about that FSMA pillar, tech-enabled traceability, it doesn't specifically say barcode, it doesn't specifically say RFID, it doesn't say anything. Right. It's very generalistic, and it certainly not favors is the right word, but it certainly it tends to steer you towards certain technologies when you need to have access to data in a reasonable, timely manner, and in an accurate manner, as John mentioned earlier. So when we're talking about these different technologies, certainly RAIN RFID is kind of on the forefront of mind. RAIN RFID with GS1 barcodes, whether it's a 1D barcode or a two-dimensional 2D matrix barcode or whatever other format. We see that barcode and RFID are going to be working hand in hand for many, many years.
Mhm.
And then there's other sensory technologies as well that complement. I say that intentionally because, again, nothing's written in stone and as a part of FSMA 204 that you need to use this or that. But inevitably, if you start to invest in one technology like RAIN RFID, then you immediately have access to other sensory like information like temperature or exposure to impact, whatever. You know, there's different sensors for different use cases. But my point is, this is where you start to now see the additional benefits that you can provide your business, to have that additional layer of data. And then at the same time, use that for brand protection, customer satisfaction type use cases as well. We were just meeting with a customer the other day, non-food related entirely, but because they experienced so many chargebacks, which is a part of supply chain as a whole, one of the things that they wanted to look at was how can they automate their processes at the dock door, while also then having better visibility to the condition of that item while it's in transit, so that when it gets to the end user, they can say, hey, it got damaged because it hit a certain impact. Well, fundamentally, we're providing that visibility through RAIN RFID plus sensors. So my point is that it's not one technology, it's a combination of many. And when you start to really look at how it can provide benefits beyond just an FDA requirement, that's really where you start to take advantage of that investment.
That's
Well,
awesome.
and I think that's interesting too. And I'll make a promise, and I think JW will probably echo this, is that when we have these initial discussions, there's no model numbers that we're discussing as part of these discussions. It's about the technologies. It's like, do you look at RFID? Do you look at barcoding? Do you look at mobile devices? It's robotics. It's where do those technologies fit in, in that landscape, right? And how can that be leveraged? And when I talk about RFID, and I'm sure you've had the same thing, JW, it's like, oh yeah, we looked at that several years ago. It didn't work. It was too expensive. You really think, these are, it's a food industry. The margins are razor thin. I can't afford that. And, they always ask me, what does a tag cost on this? And I said, well, I'm not going to give you a price, but let me give you an example. If Walmart has mandated this in several other retailers, and those retailers are putting an RFID inlay on their existing label on a package of underwear, you can imagine that, the value proposition and the technology have got to the point where adoption is increasing, and that's something that I think that all of our customers should consider.
That's such a great point, right? I mean, and I love this concept that it's not one, right? It is a solution that needs to be architected, and you need to leverage what's going to allow you to access the data, capture that data at the edge, right, John? In the best way possible for your company's benefit, your customers' benefit, your trading partners' benefit. And that's why, a company like Barcoding is a very good partner, because we have expertise in data capture across the board, right? So building that holistic solution is something that we're very adept at, and knowing that it's not going to be a one size fits all, I think, is really key here, right? So, all right, excellent. So we've got business case, we've got preparing for that site visit, leveraging our resources, really making sure we've made the right internal investments, and being open to the fact that this may be, kind of a hybrid solution, that there's no one size fits all. What else do you guys really want folks watching to understand when they really are sitting down about to build that business case, or maybe they're in the process of about, this particular regulation and the possibilities? Because I think this is an opportunity for folks, right? So maybe summarize for me what this opportunity really means. So I'll let you guys decide who has to go first.
Well, I'll go. Well, no, go JW. I don't want to steal your thunder yet.
No, I feel like I'm stepping on your toes all the time. So by all means, you're a guest. So if you want to start, Sean, go ahead.
I think this is an exercise, obviously, within the four walls, and that's how our customers and our sellers tend to engage, right? But this is really, again, this is a systemic supply chain exercise. So even when we're talking about doing these site visits, I think customers need to kind of open up their minds a little bit and bring in maybe members that represent their upstream and downstream customers into the conversation. And then they should be doing that now. Because when I look at a facility or I go through, especially like a third-party logistics facility, and I see all the different brands that are under them, like, oh, those are our customers, that's our customer. And we never tend to think, well, how can we help link these customers together? And I think this is the exact right time to start doing that. I think we need to think systemically. And I don't think, the pharmaceutical and the food space are going to be the end of this sort of regulations and compliance and track and trace. I think we need to think of that, not only from our customers that are watching, but also our sellers. Let's kind of, link hands, if you will, because you're going to have to. We might as well start thinking about that now.
And to add on to what John said before I get to the point I was going to make was we use the terms, I guess, maybe interchangeably at times, but trading partners are your customers, right? So how can you work with your partner, in this case your customer, to help each other be better? So
Right.
that open line of communication, while it's certainly easier to say than do at times, because everybody wants to kind of keep their data to themselves, to make this successful for everybody, we really have to be more open-minded. But then where I was going to come to with my point was similar to what we're doing in retail. Again, today I'm going to kind of pivot and use a similar adjacent scenario. With all these different retailers that have these mandates out there for their suppliers, we are fortunate to be working with a good representation of those different suppliers, whether you're Nordstrom's, Dillard's, Walmart, whomever you might be at this point. But the conversation quickly becomes, we know we've already touched on this, but that's, hey, if I'm putting this tag on it, or I'm using this technology for their benefit, how do I benefit from it? And that's really where we come back to that, that site walkthrough that we were talking about before, and looking at really all these different adjacent areas that we can provide those benefits. I know that I gravitate a lot to the dock door, because we talk a lot about shipment verification and looking at shipments related to overages, underages, mispacks, and then how that translates to fines and chargebacks from supplier and retailer. But then there's all sorts of other costs that come with that as well. Logistics costs, administrative costs, and just the cost of doing business to make that customer, that partner satisfied. There's just all these different benefits. So I think that's really where we need to help people understand that, yeah, these are mandates in some way, but in reality, if I come to the table with an open mind, there's a lot of benefit for me as an organization that I can take away from this. And one other point I'll make is, as we're talking with organizations, everybody has sustainability on their mind these days, and how can you be sustainable in different ways. Specific to food, we're starting to see a significant trend where people or organizations, I'm sorry, are moving away from corrugated containers. They're moving to returnable, reusable packaging, and through the use of, again, GS1 standards to help provide that visibility. How do I now know what food items are within the contents of that container that I'm now also tracking for my sustainability initiative and other business improvements? So I think if you really come to the table with an open mind, there's a lot of benefits that technology as a whole through barcoding and Zebra can help enable.
So come to the table, that modernized mindset, right? And I think if we think of this as an opportunity, those quick serve restaurants and grocers, why not be the leader? Why not be out there kind of getting this done? Because it's only going to benefit your customers. It's only going to benefit you, your internal operations. And, I think that's probably that mindset shift, right? So if instead of kind of being like, bah, regulations, leave me alone, I'll deal with this later, instead thinking like, well, maybe this is pointing the way to something that's beneficial to me anyway. And I can maybe take that leadership position, much like Zebra and barcoding, and get out ahead of it. And let's keep people's food safer. Let's reduce food waste in the process. Like, I just think that is such a strong advantage for those companies that are willing to step out there right now and get us in your facility. We'd love to come over. But I think, right? I mean, I don't want to be on a soapbox, but as a brand, expert, that's what I would want.
And Jody, I know that
Right.
we started this conversation in the beginning. We said that, or John said it at least, we were slated for, I don't know, an hour, but we can in reality, we could talk about this for hours because you say one thing, it triggers a thought, then triggers the next thought. And something that we hadn't really talked about yet. And again, we don't need to be here all day, but the fact is that we didn't dive deep into some of those specific benefits for a given stakeholder. I think maybe you asked the question early in the beginning. I didn't answer it well enough. And that's, if you look at like QSRs, for example, right? And it's not just QSR, it's others. How do I leverage, that technology to have better inventory visibility? How do I manage those first in, first out models? How do I manage that first expire, first out model? How does that tie into, food quality? And you said something that made it trigger, and that's, a lot of organizations and ones that are very public in the space now, like Chipotle, that have put forth their mandate well in advance of FSMA. They're promoting their brand through fresh product. And you need technology to best manage that inventory to ensure fresh product before it becomes spoiled and causes then another issue thereafter. So you're talking about brand protection, brand quality, consumer experience, and they're all threaded together.
Mhm.
Love it.
Yeah, and I think the one last thing I want to say, Jody, before I'm sure we're probably getting ready to wrap here is that other thing that I hear from customers or through the grapevine is I don't want to spend the money until I absolutely have to. I don't it's got to
Oh
be the
yeah,
right
the
time.
money part. Yeah.
Yeah, if I spend $1,000 today and I don't need it for a year, then that's not very very frugal on my part in this investment. But I think again, labor shortages, everybody's looking to make things efficient. So again, this is the right time. I don't think you can go wrong with making investments if you look at it as I need to modernize my workflows. I need to, guard against the labor shortages that are impacting every customer that we talk to every day. And again, look at this regulation compliance as a byproduct.
Mhm. Mhm. I was thinking about my personal life. I'm like, rarely has anything ever gotten better when I've procrastinated on it. Like that's rarely been a winning strategy for me in my personal life. So probably not great in a business environment either. So well, this has been awesome. And yes, I think what we'll do is, I'll huddle up with you guys. We'll make sure we kind of summarize some of these key points. So, as you were listening along, if you weren't taking furious notes, we'll do that for you. Those best practices for creating that plan, really like a checklist of really what you need to do to prepare for FSMA 204. There's lots of resources out there. But I think some of the key things to take away today, right? Barcoding and Zebra, we're the leaders. We can bring you everything in one place. So that consulting, that site visit, all the different pieces and parts of the technology that you're going to need, from the tag all the way through all of the different infrastructure, the mobilization, et cetera, and then all the services to keep it up and running. So all that in one spot with this partnership. And I think that's really key. And then, of course, you get to work with passionate folks like JW and John. And I think that only makes things even better. So don't hesitate, get out there, let us know how we can help. We're here to help. So we are ready when you are, and you can reach us at barcoding.com. There's a consultation form, there's a phone number. You can email me. I know that you guys get my email, so you can email me directly, and we'd love to get you set up with JW and John. So for our final question, because we've been talking about food all day, I would like to know your favorite dish that you like to cook up. So I'm going to leave it super wide open. You can give me some parameters of when you like to cook this, or maybe when you don't want to cook this, but give me your favorite dish that you would like to cook up. JW, let's start with you. I'll give John some time to think.
Yeah, let's be very clear. I don't cook. So, I love food. Don't get me wrong. I'm fortunate that my wife is a great cook, and we like to eat out whenever we can. But I don't cook. So,
Okay,
but
give me your favorite dish you like to eat.
I will take Mexican food 24/7, 365. That's my dish.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Love it.
I love me some fajitas.
John,
I
are you
think
did I ask the wrong question of you too?
I made a mean PB&J right before I got on the call, so that was
That's
good.
what I had.
Yeah, I do some cooking, but I think my favorite dish that my wife makes is is beef stew. So, you know, that beef and that caramelized stuff and the potatoes and gravy and you know, that's my jam right there. So.
Oh, I love it. That sounds amazing. I'm gonna throw something. I just learned this, so I don't know if it's my favorite, but I took a cooking class to learn how to make homemade gnocchi and red sauce, and that was very fun because you kind of make a little plate and it's a whole thing. And you can just drink wine while you're doing it. It's great. So,
Cool.
well, I really appreciate you all being here to talk about cultivating FSMA 204 awareness, preparation, and really getting this ball rolling. We couldn't touch upon everything today, but hopefully this conversation gets the wheels turning for you and that you're ready to get started with us. So John, JW, thank you so much. Thank you to Zebra Technologies for sponsoring this huddle, and we'll see you online. Before I forget, if you like this video and you want to see more of it, hit that subscribe button, and then you'll be in touch with everything good barcoding wise. So,
All right, thanks,
all right, everybody,
appreciate it.
have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.